Okay, today is September 1st already, 2022, and right now it's 7:02 Eastern Time, and we are having our second session of the Book of Enoch. And today's chapter is from chapter 10 to the end of chapter 19. It's going to be very um, exciting. But anyway, so the floor is yours, LG.
Thank you, Yoko. And yeah, these are what may be the most exciting chapters in the book and the most pivotal and the most relatable to exactly where we are now. You chose a very good place to leave off last week. We learned, the angels had descended, and we learned the different talents, if you want to call it that, that they began teaching. So we were getting into a little bit of that direction, and so tonight should take us there quite a distance. So I'm excited.
Okay, so should I cue up the video?
Yes.
Concerns each of them, but you say nothing to us. What ought we to do with them about this? And then the Most High, the Great and Holy One, spoke and sent Arshe-Laur, the son of Lamech, and said to him, Say to him in my name, Hide yourself, and reveal to him the end which is coming, because the whole earth will be destroyed. A deluge is about to come on all the earth, and all that is in it will be destroyed. And now teach him so that he may escape, and his offspring may survive for the whole earth. And further the Lord said to Raphael, Bind Azazel by his hands and his feet, and throw him into the darkness, and split open the desert which is in Dudael, and throw him in there. And throw on him jagged and sharp stones, and cover him with darkness, and let him stay there forever, and cover his face so that he may not see the light, and so that on the great day of judgment he may be hurled into the fire. And restore the earth which the angels have ruined, and announce the restoration of the earth. For I shall restore the earth, so that not all the sons of men shall be destroyed because of the knowledge which the watchers made known and taught to their sons. And the whole earth has been ruined by the teaching of the works of Azazel, and against him write all sin. And the Lord said to Gabriel, Proceed against the bastards and the reprobates, and against the sons of the fornicators, and destroy the sons of the fornicators and the sons of the watchers from amongst men, and send them out. Send them against one another, and let them destroy themselves in battle, for they will not have length of days. And they will petition you, but the petitioners will gain nothing in respect of them, for they hope for eternal life, and that each of them will live life for 500 years. And the Lord said to Michael, Go, inform Semyaza and the others with him, who have associated with the women to corrupt themselves with them in all their uncleanness. When all their sons kill each other, and when they see the destruction of their loved ones, bind them for 70 generations under the hills of the earth, until the day of their judgment and of their consummation, until the judgment, which is for all eternity, is accomplished. And in those days they will lead them to the abyss of fire, in torment, and in prison they will be shut up for all eternity. And then Semyaza will be burnt, and from then on destroyed with them. Together they will be bound until the end of all generations. And destroy all the souls of lust and the sons of the watchers, for they have wronged men. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and every evil work will cease. And now all the righteous will be humble, and will live until they beget thousands. And all the days of their youth, and their Sabbaths, they will fulfill in peace. And in those days the whole earth will be tilled in righteousness, and all of it will be planted with trees, and it will be filled with blessing. And all the pleasant trees they will plant on it, and they will plant on it vines. And the vine that is planted on it will produce fruit in abundance. And every seed that is sown on it, each measure will produce 1,000. And each measure of olives will produce 10 baths of oil. And you cleanse the earth from all wrong, and from all iniquity, and from all sin, and from all impiety, and from all the uncleanness which is brought about on the earth. And all the sons of men shall be righteous, and all the nations shall serve and bless me, and all shall worship me. And the earth will be cleansed from all corruption, and from all sin, and from all wrath, and from all torment. And I will not again send a flood upon it for all generations forever. And in those days I will open the storehouses of blessing which are in heaven, so that I may send them down upon the earth, upon the work and upon the toil of the sons of men. Peace and truth will be united for all the days of eternity, and for all the generations of eternity. And then Enoch disappeared, and none of the sons of men knew where he was hidden, where he was, or what had happened. And all his doings were with the holy ones, and with the watchers in his days. And I, Enoch, was blessing the great Lord and the King of eternity. And behold, the watchers called to me, Enoch the scribe, and said to me, Enoch, scribe of righteousness, go and inform the watchers of heaven, who have left the high heaven and the holy eternal place, and have corrupted themselves with women, and have done as the sons of men do, and have taken wives for themselves, and have become completely corrupt on the earth. They will have on earth neither peace nor forgiveness of sin, for they will not rejoice in their sons. The slaughter of their beloved ones they will see, and over the destruction of their sons they will lament and petition forever. But they will have neither mercy nor peace. And Enoch went and said to Azazel, You will not have peace. A severe sentence has come out against you that you should be bound. And you will have neither rest nor mercy, nor the granting of any petitions, because of the wrong which you have taught, and because of all the works of blasphemy and wrong and sin which you have shown to the sons of men. And then I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid. Fear and trembling seized them. And they asked me to write out for them the record of a petition, so that they might receive forgiveness, and to take a record of their petition up to the Lord in heaven. For they were not able from then on to speak, and they did not raise their eyes to heaven, out of shame for their sins, for which they had been condemned. And then I wrote out the record of their petition, and their supplication in regard to their spirits, and the deeds of each one of them, and in regard to what they ask, that they should obtain absolution and forbearance. And I went and sat down by the waters of Dan, in Dan, which is southwest of Hermon, and I read out the record of their petition until I fell asleep. And behold, a dream came to me, and visions fell upon me, and I saw a vision of wrath, that I should speak to the sons of heaven and reprove them. And I woke up and went to them, and they were all sitting gathered together as they mourned, in Ubazael, which is between Lebanon and Sinir, with their faces covered. And I spoke in front of them all the visions that I had seen in my sleep, and I began to speak these words to reprove the watchers of heaven. This book is the word of righteousness and of reproof for the watchers who are from eternity, as the Holy and Great One commanded in that vision. I saw in my sleep what I will now tell, with the tongue of flesh and with my breath, which the Great One has given men in the mouth.
I have no sound.
She got she has to restart her video.
Yeah, I gotta start. Sorry.
She's on the New York network.
Yeah. We hear that one going down.
But in my vision, thus it appeared, that your petition would not be granted to you for all the days of eternity, and complete judgment has been decreed against you, and you will not have peace. And from now on, you will not ascend into heaven for all eternity, and it has been decreed that you will be bound on earth for all the days of eternity. And before this, you will have seen the destruction of your beloved sons, and you will not be able to enjoy them, but they will fall before you by the sword. And your petition will not be granted in respect of them, or in respect of yourselves. And while you weep and supplicate, you do not speak a single word from the writings which I have written. And the vision appeared to me as follows. Behold, clouds called me in the vision, and mists called me, and the path of the stars and flashes of lightning hastened me and drove me. And in the vision winds caused me to fly, and hastened me, and lifted me up into the sky. And I proceeded until I came near a wall which was made of hailstones, and a tongue of fire surrounded it. And it began to make me afraid. And I went into the tongue of fire, and came near to a large house, which was built of hailstones, and the wall of that house was like a mosaic of hailstones, and its floor was snow. Its roof was like the path of the stars and flashes of lightning, and among them was fiery cherubim, and their sky was like water. And there was a fire burning around its wall, and its door was ablaze with fire. And I went into that house, and it was as hot as fire and as cold as snow, and there was neither pleasure nor life in it. Fear covered me, and trembling took hold of me. And as I was shaking and trembling, I fell on my face. And I saw in the vision, and behold, another house which was larger than the former, and all its doors were open before me, and it was built of a tongue of fire. And in everything it so excelled in glory and splendor and size, so that I am unable to describe to you its glory and its size. And its floor was fire, and above lightning and the path of the stars, and its roof also was a burning fire. And I looked, and I saw in it a high throne, and its appearance was like ice, and its surrounds like the shining sun and the sound of cherubim. And from underneath the high throne there flowed out rivers of fire, so that it was impossible to look at it. And he who is great in glory sat upon it, and his raiment was brighter than the sun, and whiter than any snow. And no angel could enter. And at the appearance of the face of him who is honored and praised, no creature of flesh could look. A sea of fire burnt around him, and a great fire stood in front of him, and none of those around him came near to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, but he needed no holy counsel. And the holy ones who were near to him did not leave by night or day, and did not depart from him. And until then I had a covering on my face, as I trembled. And the Lord called me with his own mouth, and said to me, Come here, Enoch, to my holy word. And he lifted me up, and brought me near to the door, and I looked, with my face down. And he answered me, and he said to me with his voice, Hear, do not be afraid, Enoch, you righteous man, and scribe of righteousness, come here, and hear my voice. And go say to the watchers of heaven, who sent you to petition on their behalf, you ought to petition on behalf of men, not men on behalf of you. Why have you left the high, holy, and eternal heaven, and lain with women, and become unclean with the daughters of men, and taken wives for yourselves, and done as the sons of the earth, and begotten giant sons? And you were spiritual, holy, living an eternal life, but you became unclean upon the women, and begot children through the blood of flesh, and lusted after the blood of men, and produced flesh and blood, as they do, who die and are destroyed. And for this reason I give men wives, so that they might sow seed in them, and so that children might be born by them, so that deeds might be done on the earth. But you formerly were spiritual, living an eternal, immortal life for all the generations of the world. For this reason I do not arrange wives for you, because the dwelling of the spiritual ones is in heaven. And now the giants who were born from body and flesh will be called evil spirits on the earth, and on the earth will be their dwelling. And evil spirits came out from their flesh, because from above they were created. From the holy watchers was their origin and first foundation. Evil spirits they will be on earth, and spirits of the evil ones they will be called. And the dwelling of the spirits of heaven is heaven, but the dwelling of the spirits of the earth, who were born on the earth, is earth. And the spirits of the giants do wrong, are corrupt, attack, fight, break on the earth, and cause sorrow. And they eat no food, do not thirst, and are not observed. And these spirits will rise against the sons of men and against the women, because they came out of them during the days of slaughter and destruction. And the death of the giants, wherever the spirits have gone out from their bodies, their flesh will be destroyed before the judgment. Thus they will be destroyed until the day of the great consummation is accomplished, upon the great age, upon the watchers and the impious ones. And now to the watchers, who sent you to petition on their behalf, who were formerly in heaven. You were in heaven, but its secrets had not yet been revealed to you, and a worthless mystery you knew. This you made known to women in the hardness of your hearts, and through this mystery the women and the men cause evil to increase on the earth. Say to them, therefore, you will not have peace. And they took me to a place where they were like burning fire, and when they wished, they made themselves look like men. And they led me to a place of storm, and to a mountain, the tip of whose summit reached to heaven. And I saw lighted places, and thunder in the outermost ends. In its depths a bow of fire, and arrows and their quivers, and a sword of fire, and all the flashes of lightning. And they took me to the water of life, as it is called, and to the fire of the west, which receives every setting of the sun. And I came to a river of fire, whose fire flows like water, and pours out into the great sea, which is towards the west. And I saw all the great rivers, and I reached the great darkness, and went where all flesh walks. And I saw the mountains of the darkness of winter, and the place where the water of all the deeps pours out. And I saw the mouths of all the rivers of the earth, and the mouth of the deep. And I saw the storehouses of all the winds, and I saw how with them he has adorned all creation, and I saw the foundations of the earth. And I saw the cornerstone of the earth, and I saw the four winds which support the earth and the sky. And I saw how the winds stretched out the height of heaven, and how they positioned themselves between heaven and earth. They are the pillars of heaven. And I saw the winds which turn the sky and caused the disk of the sun and all the stars to set. And I saw the winds on the earth which support the clouds, and I saw the paths of the angels. I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of heaven above. And I went towards the south, and it was burning day and night, where there were 7 mountains of precious stones, 3 towards the east and 3 towards the south. And those towards the east were of colored stone, and one was of pearl, and one was of healing stone, and those towards the south of red stone. And the middle one reached to heaven, like the throne of the Lord, of Stebium, and the top of the throne was of sapphire. And I saw a burning fire in what was in all the mountains, and I saw a place there beyond the great earth. There the waters gathered together. And I saw a deep chasm of the earth, with pillars of heavenly fire, and I saw among them fiery pillars of heaven, which were falling, and as regards both height and depth they were immeasurable. And beyond this chasm I saw a place, and it had neither the sky above it, nor the foundation of earth below it. There was no water on it, and no birds, but it was a desert place. And a terrible thing I saw there, 7 stars, like great burning mountains. And like a spirit questioning me, the angel said, "This is the place of the end of heaven and earth. This is the prison for the stars of heaven and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire, these are the ones which transgressed the command of the Lord from the beginning of their rising, because they did not come out at their proper times. And he was angry with them, and bound them until the time of the consummation of their sin, in the year of mystery." And Uriel said to me, "The spirits of the angels who were promiscuous with women will stand here, And they, assuming many forms, made men unclean, and will lead men astray, so that they sacrifice to demons as gods. And they will stand there until the great judgment, on which they will be judged, so that an end will be made of them. And their wives, having led astray the angels of heaven, will become peaceful. And I, Enoch, alone saw the sight, the ends of everything, and no man has seen what I have seen. His offspring perish.
Wow.
That went by really quickly.
It certainly did. I was surprised. It was really quick for me. I just got on. Hi, Lynn. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Lynn.
Hello, hello. But what was interesting was that he said that the fallen angels became demons to the gods. Did you hear that very last piece?
It's a little difficult to hear you, Lynn, but I heard you say about the last piece.
So
Okay.
the very last piece, it said, they became demons to the gods. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's on the board. I can read it. We can read it.
Now I don't hear Yoko.
She's coming back in. There you go.
Now I hear you.
Yeah, so I could take us through a really, really high level recap, just a couple of bullet points, and then we can go back and do a Q&A if you want to. Do you want me to do that, Yoko?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, and of course,
I'm going to take notes.
okay. And of course, I won't do it justice, but so where we picked up is, or where we ended last week, is when the archangels finally approached God and said, you know, you're omnipotent, you see all, you know what's going on down on the dry land. That's what they called, you know, earth, the dry land. But yet you don't tell us what to do about this. What should we do about this? And when we pick up this week is when God answers them and tells them what He's going to do about it. And then, you know, the angels go about and do at least the first portion of that. This is, you know, prior to the actual flooding of it, but they chained the fallen angels up. And then this is where we get into the petition and Enoch's what we call the vision of reproof. Reproof meaning punishment. So as Enoch tells us that he left basically his family and was taken up, and the various places that he was taken. But in this part, he gets to where he's taken to where the fallen angels are, and they want him to petition on their behalf to God. And so Enoch uh, says what is a dream or a vision of reproof. And this is where, so by this time, God has already told the archangels what to do. And part of that is that the Nephilim will kill one another. And that their fathers, who, even though these fallen angels were evil, they loved their offspring. So for them to have to know that their offspring were going to kill themselves off was part of the punishment. And then after that, Enoch is taken to kind of what is an empty house. And it was kind of one of those levels of heaven that is empty, not scary, not good, just void and empty. But then from there, he sees the second house out in front, and it was glorious. And, words could not describe it. And that is actually where he is brought, he not even on his own accord. They're basically, the archangels are basically, one has one arm, one has the other, and they're having to carry Enoch because he can't, just withstand this experience as a mere human. But nonetheless, he gets him, that they get him there. And then God shares a lot with Enoch about the spirits, about the Nephilim, how they're going to perish. Their bodies are going to perish, but the spirits are going to be judged in the final great judgment. And then Enoch talks, there's another segment there where he talks about the four corners of the earth, and as he's being taken to the next place of his enlightenment, he kind of describes, the foundations of the earth. So that's a big part within itself. And then, there's the dialogue that God is giving about how, um, even though the fallen angels are now chained for the duration of the rest of this to play out, that what they've done is that it will continue leading men astray, you know, the whole way. And then it kind of ended in an odd place, which is that Enoch sees the end of everything. And just so that we all feel not panicked between tonight's book club and next week's book club, this is one of those things in session, be sure that we're thinking about the correct generation, because Enoch speaks of two generations. The one that he's currently, that Old Testament generation, and then a distant generation to come. And so the time that we're in now, and us, we are that distant generation. But it's nice to keep those in perspective, or the book can be a little unsettling in places. And this is one of those places that I want to clarify because of where we ended, that it says that Enoch, he's disturbed because he sees the end of everything. And so this was the flood. And then as we go next week, we'll learn about how Noah is going to be spared, and a little bit more. But I'll stop there, and then Yoko, back to you, and you can facilitate any Q&A, and I'll help you field any questions.
Well, thank you, LG. Are there any questions?
I'm just trying to put all that I know from all of this to today, and all of those spirits today. Like listening to this, listening to Juan today with that bloodline story was very interesting to me. So somehow, some way, they're still here today, whether they're here or they're interdimensional. I think when they talk about the interdimensional, I think that's who they're talking about. So somehow they're still here today. Does anybody agree with that, or am I way off? Or are they coming? That's what I don't know.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead, LG. I said I do agree with that there here, but LG, can you please elaborate?
Yeah. Yes, and this is one of the topics that I've specifically found important because we need to know who's on the battlefield, right? We know that we're on the battlefield and that we're God's army and we have our alliance and, we have Jesus, the Holy Spirit. And so we know who's on our side, but it's important that we know who's on the other side of the battlefield. Since this is an ancient battle and we've had sealed books, sealed for our generation, we're having to figure out who that is. So in my research, who I think we're dealing with, and this spins around to answer your question, Lynn, is we had Satan himself. Now, those that know me well know that I believe that Satan was cast into the eternal lake of fire in 2021. That is God's year, 2021, which began September 6th, 2021, and ends in 4 days. That's God's year. But I do believe that, you know, that's already occurred. That's why it's already won. And so we had Satan on the battlefield. But besides that, we have the lineage of Cain. And, Noah was pure in his generations, and so was his family. That did not mean sin. He was not a sinless man. It meant that his DNA was not contaminated with the Nephilim blood. Um, Noah had 3 sons. His son Ham, and all of us, our claim is basically from Seth and the other brother, not Ham. Ham's not really a good dude in all of this. Ham's wife is believed to have had Cain bloodline lineage. So that is the only hypothesis for Cain's bloodline to have survived the flood. So that gives us 2 different foes on the battlefield, Satan and the bloodline of Cain. The next is just the Satanist. So Luciferians and Satanists are not the same things. Luciferians are the bloodline. Satanists are second-class citizens. They are not of the bloodline. They are normal human beings that have decided to go on the dark side. Those are the Satanists, but they're on the battlefield too. And then the final thing on the battlefield is the Nephilim, the giants, the mighty men of renown, the very beings that the flood was uh, created to eradicate. They were half human and half fallen angels. So they had 2 components to their being. They had the human component, which their human body died in the flood. They perished just like the humans that were not Nephilim did. But because they had an interdimensional component through their sire, which was a fallen angel, they have that eternal spirit. Only God can end an eternal spirit. And that eternal spirit became disembodied when the human portion died in the flood. Those disembodied spirits are what the Bible refers to as demons. And in my cautionary part of my little ministry or whatever this is, alerting people to the different possibilities of that, because they've used the word aliens to be benevolent good beings, but they've also for thousands of years hid real demonic disembodied spirits behind the facade of them being an alien. And so that's kind of where we are right now, present day.
That was so
I have a
good.
question.
So good.
Thank
Archie.
you. Yeah.
Thank you. And it was
Excellent.
clear. And it was clear. Thank you.
Yeah. I have a question. So we've been seeing on these posting of Vril, VRILL, uh, Vrils, and they are according to, I think it was the first person I heard it from was Donald Marshall, who was the first person that came out probably in 2015 or something, or I don't know, earlier, to talk about human cloning. But anyway, so he was talking about Vril. Vril are these little like worm-like thing, and they go into the right eye. But they usually put it in the right eye. That's from the Black Eye Club. They go in there, and then they possess the person, and then, so what is that? Is that demon, or what is that, a part of some like metamorphosis of um, the Nephilim spirit? Is that what it is, you think?
I would equate it to, okay, let's say if you walked out in your backyard and there was a log that had been there for a couple of seasons, and you took your boot and pushed that log and rolled it away. There's going to be roly-polies, and there's going to be things under there that are natural inhabitants of the soil. All right, now go down how many hundreds of feet, how many miles down? Okay, so you have what could be natural insectish like, uh, microorganisms, just like a roly-poly, but whatever. This one has little fingers or something. I believe that the lower level demonic spirits would inhabit, because remember, there's a hierarchy in everything, all the way down to the lowest peon, to the smallest roly-poly. There's a hierarchy. And so some of the lower station demonic spirits, I think, um, infected itself into certain species, and then they were used in ways that had artificial intelligence, but it's not the AI that we think about that runs our Google programs and figures out our facial features. I'm not talking about artificial AI. I'm talking about, intelligence that is because it is of an interdimensional component.
Okay, thank you.
And the host to those Viril will only live a maximum of 2 years. And it's kind of like a robot. If you've ever seen, one of those robotic, at a theme park or something, the older it gets, the less reliable it is. And its right arm is supposed to shoot up and say howdy, but it don't. It's kind of the same way with a Viril. They take over that person and they take over the consciousness. It's like a remote control. Um, and, I don't really go to the fringe. I know about this. I'm not saying that I align with every aspect. I'm just saying this is informational. But about 2 years, and then the physical body of the host will cease to be able to function. But they already have a clone, right? So it doesn't matter.
So is that parasite an entity of some sort that then moves on to the new clone, or does that parasite perish with the whatever it was that whose body they lived in?
Yeah, I think they die too. the whole thing, the parasite too.
So these vrills must have a way of duplicating themselves, or do they just find more of them and find more of them? I'm just trying to put together where they come from, and will the vrills eventually just run out because they can't reproduce? Are they harvested in some way or kept in some place to propagate in some way?
Well, I think they've become like a self-sustaining species. It's not like every single whatever you want to call a vril that hasn't been possessed yet. It's not like every single one has to actually have the first level host enter them. Remember when I talked about the hierarchy of the demonic spirits? Well, those get watered down too. You see what I mean? So if you have two vril that are already watered down, then they are procreating. And then some of these species are asexual species, which would just lay eggs. But the longer generationally that they would procreate, then the watered down they become, which is why in the hierarchy they become that low. But so I don't know that much about, the vril. I have seen an actual picture of a real vril. So what they're saying is a vril actually exists. Now, what all capabilities, the truth will be revealed to us, the distant generation. So that brings us back to the Book of Enoch.
LG, it said 70 generations, 70. So how far is that? Have you done any calculation on that?
No, but I would say that would be about 140 to 180 years,
So it's
which is
already
about how long. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to just say, which is about how many years that the cabal has been in total full control. That's about half of the 355, and it took them the first half to get a foothold. So, when you talk about, that many generations or whatever. I'm sorry, I was probably doing 7 generations, not 70. But I don't know where you're getting that. Is it from the prophecies? Because I know has a 70-week prophecy.
It was just in the just now. We just heard they were bound for 70 generation, and then it'll be the judgment of the great consummation after that. So that's what I was wondering when they were talking about the Nephilims, and that's what I was thinking, 70 generations. So, but anyway, it doesn't really matter because I think it's past already. It's not because this was from that Enoch time. It's like it happened a long time ago already.
Right. Well, and if Enoch was sixth from Adam, so he was the 7th generation. And let's see, he was born, well, Adam was still alive when Enoch was born, and Adam died when he was, I think, 639 years old. So we could roughly say about 100 years per generation. So 70 times 100 years is that 7,000 years? Probably, because there's a 7,000-year prophecy. There you go.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and remember we're in year 6,856 of a 7,000-year prophecy. Well, it's actually Enoch's 10,000-year prophecy, but he does it at the end of a decade, I mean, at the end of it instead of the beginning. So, anyway, so even though we're in the 6,000, like when we go into the 7,000th generation in 144 years from now, it's really the let me think of how to say that without being confusing.
You know what's really mind blowing is how through you're talking about generations and thousands of years, and the church has been in existence for such a long time. To think that they have kept him secret enough out of every single religion, maybe not the Ethiopian, and maybe some of the Essenes, or because they might have the writings, but they kept him such a secret that I don't. And I've been a Baptist, I've been a Lutheran, I've been a Catholic. I don't think I've ever heard his name until I became a Catholic, which was very recently, 20 years ago. But isn't it incredible how they kept him out of the norm of speaking when you talk about religion?
You talking about Enoch
Yeah.
himself? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is what I stopped to think about. We have been so deceived and lied to that we just presume that it's a generational thing, that the deceit built upon itself year after year after year after decade after century, and the level of deceit got to where it is now over this long span of thousands of years. But what I would postulate is that that's not the case, that we've only been deceived for around 400 years. Now we're re educated to believe, even in our truth movement and our great awakening, we're still assuming that everyone that came before us was also deceived. But what if that's not the case? What if all right after the mud flood, when they did the reprogramming centers and destroyed all evidence of the old world, that was only 3 to 400 years ago. So really, they only had to program 4 generations, not 70. Only 4 to 5 to 6 generations are the ones that have been deceived. We just assume that the other ones were. You see what I mean? So we assume that the Book of Enoch never made it in, and never, never, never was, and never, never, never. But we also need to consider that it always was up until 400 years ago, that this has only been sideways for 400 years to the extent that it is now.
So maybe they're letting us know purposefully, because Enoch, I remember reading that in the drops. Like, what? What? Why are they talking about it? And I knew of him. I didn't know a lot about him. I'm like, why is this guy's name, this biblical guy's name, in the drops? So it's quite interesting. But I think, like you just said, he might have always been there, and they found proof that he was, and people did know about him. But now they're seeping it out little by little for those who can see and hear.
Yeah. Um, I wanted to read just like 2 lines, and I think Lynn, you asked about that. It's chapter 19.1,
You can read
and
100 for all I care, Yoko. I'll listen.
and Uriel said to me, the spirits of the angels who were promiscuous with women will stand here, and they assuming many forms, made men unclean, and will lead men astray so that they sacrifice to demons as gods. Is that what you were asking? And
Yes.
Lynn? Yeah. And they will stand here until the great judgment day on which they will be judged. so that an end will be made of them. So these angels who were promiscuous with women will stand here, and they assuming, so these angels, they do assume many forms that we heard of, and made man unclean and will lead man astray. So they will be sacrificed. They will be sacrificed to the demons as gods. So I don't know how I mean their ritual goes, but this is how their punishment will be. She's talking about the angels that have you know that had tainted human.
Well, I think too, also with that passage, um, it may also be speaking of just a quick recap, which is the fallen angels taught women how to be promiscuous. And then those women, so there's different groups of women, okay? When they first came down and chose wives, this was not a voluntary thing. This was not a courtship. What they mean is they chose wives, and the wives were not given a choice. But then, as they began teaching all of the women all of these things, these theories that they should not have been teaching them, um, then women began to follow that direction instead of God. That direction has always required child sacrifice. You can call it Moloch, you can call it Satan, you can call it Baal. It's the same thing, and it always requires child sacrifice. So I think what that is saying is it's talking about the great judgment. And when the great judgment happens is when all of the wealth of the wicked is transferred to the righteous. But what also happens is the wicked is brought in front of the righteous and handed over to the righteous for the righteous to punish them as they will. This is the wicked. Now, remember, if there are interdimensional, the dark principalities, we as humans can't destroy them. God has to do that. So you have two things here. You've got the wicked, which will be turned over to the righteous, and the righteous will judge them. These are our military tribunals. These are our executions. These are our crimes of humanity. The wicked politicians, the wicked Hollywood. But there's also a segment in this where God, because it's called the Great Judgment, because this day is reserved from the beginning of time that this great day of judgment will occur. And we talked about this last week, where on that day, God will judge everything, the stars, the blades of grass, the trees, us, the rabbits, everything. God will judge those fallen angels and Satan and cast them into the lake of fire. God has to end them because they are eternal beings that only He can end. And I think that's what that's. Well, we're
It
right up on the hour. So, what do we maybe take one more question, and then we'll be excited for next week.
Yeah, one more question. Who wants to ask?
I'll ask. So when we talk about them being here today, how do you think they manifest themselves? What do you think? You think they're in people, or do you think they're just here but haven't revealed themselves yet to us, or the chaos? Like, do you think they're here and they're real?
Yes. And I think that they meant, I mean, I know this to be, and I'll land the night with this big humdinger here. Okay, when I talked about Moloch and I talked about Baal, I didn't mention Baphomet. All right, so now let's talk about Baphomet, and this is where all of the transgender, the modern Satanists, and even the Luciferians, you know, Moloch and Baal are a little outdated. The new fad was Baphomet. You know, it's all Satan, it's all demonic entities. It's just what kind of horns and what kind of, you know, like fashion doll they want it to look like. And it always goes towards bestiality. But anyway, Baphomet is their perfect deity. And Baphomet is a male by birth because it has the male anatomy, not artificial, not created through science, the male anatomy as it was created. And then they transgender into a female, and then they augment with the breast augmentation. And that is your transgender. That is their God. Their God is transgender. Okay. Why do they do this? Why do these elites take their baby as soon as it's born, and if it's a male, turn it into a female? Just because they're sick? No, there's a reason. They know that these demonic, the higher echelon, remember the hierarchy. They want the pure blood demonic spirits. They don't want the real shit. They want the pure hierarchy at the top echelon. And that demonic spirit is attracted to a host which has the physical appearance of Baphomet. So the elite manifest their child to have this look and then pray that one of the higher entities will possess their child. That's why they're turning them into transgender, is to attract the level of you know, demonic entity. So I'll kind of, I guess, land with that. I'm not sure that that answered the question, but we could go on and on and on and on of how this book is. I mean, it is our roadmap. It's our playbook, past, present, future, and that's why they hid it from us. It's just like if they destroyed all of our ammunition and took all of our guns. This is how we fight the war, is with this knowledge, and that's why they kept it from us. But
My
God knew they were going to keep it from us, and he had a plan on how he was going to reveal it all along, which he told to his prophet Daniel. It's beautiful.
my people will perish for the lack of knowledge.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and exit out and let you bid good night, Yoko, and turn your recording off. Again, I'm honored that you would invite me.
Okay, thank you so much
night,
for
everyone.
everybody coming
Thanks,
for
Elsie.
the second session, and then I'm going to stop recording, and then the next. I'm sorry, there's some echo. Next session will be next Thursday at 7, and that will be our third session, and we'll continue. We'll start at, I think what we'll do is chapter 20 to 29, the end of 29. Okay, and I'll post it on my board. And thank you, and have a good evening. And I will stop the recording. If anybody wants to stay, fine.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I enjoyed it.